Today, we're diving into one of the biggest mysteries out there, the human brain. But we're going to look at it through a totally different lens. Forget biology for a second. We're going to see how engineers and mathematicians are building the tools to finally figure out how this impossibly complex network actually works. I mean, let's just start with the scale of this thing. Your brain, it has about 86 billion neurons. That number is so huge, it's hard to even wrap your head around. It's more than 10 times the number of people on Earth. So how on earth do you even begin to understand a network that complex? It's been a massive roadblock for scientists for, well, forever. Well, the answer, and this is what's so cool, might not come from a biology lab at all. It turns out, to really get a handle on the brain, researchers are looking to mathematics and engineering, borrowing a whole new toolkit from a field you probably wouldn't expect. And that really is the brain's grand challenge. You see, it's not just a clump of cells, it's a dynamic, living network. The real goal isn't just to map it out. It's to figure out the fundamental rules that make it all go. In engineering speak, it's the ultimate control problem. And if 86 billion neurons wasn't mind-boggling enough for you, try this on for size. Those neurons make about 100 trillion connections. Just watching this network do its thing only shows us correlations, you know? This bit lights up when you think about that. But that doesn't tell us why. To really get it, we need to find the rules of the road, the cause and effect that drives the whole system. So, where do we find these rules? This is where the engineers come in. Researchers are now applying a field called systems and control theory directly to neuroscience. They're starting to treat the brain less like a biological specimen and more like a super advanced dynamic machine. So what even is control theory? Well, in the simplest terms, it's the math that helps us manage complicated stuff. Think about the thermostat in your house. It's a classic example. It senses the room's temperature, it computes if it's too hot or cold, and then it acts to change it. Control theory is what gives us the universal principles behind that simple sense, compute, act loop. And what's so powerful about this is just how universal this toolkit is. I mean, the very same mathematical ideas that help an engineer predict how a jet engine will behave can be tweaked to predict how circuits are going to fire inside your brain. It's like finding a shared language of control for everything. Now, to really see how this works, we've got to go one level deeper. The very foundation of control theory is built on an even more basic idea: axiomatic systems. This is the core principle that you can understand any complex system, no matter how wild, by first nailing down a few simple, unbreakable rules. The axioms. In fact, some folks in the field call axiomatic systems theory the universal language of control. It's the bedrock. It gives us a common way to talk about how any complex system works, whether it's a Roomba, a robot on Mars, or, you guessed it, the human brain. So, an axiom is just a starting point, right? A basic rule we all agree is true. Think about chess. You only have a handful of rules for how the pieces can move. That's it. But from that tiny set of rules, you get a game with nearly infinite strategic complexity. That's a perfect example of an axiomatic system in action. So how do you use this for the brain? Well, researchers build a simplified model. First, they define what an abstract neuron is and what it does. Second, they set the axioms. These are the core rules for how these neurons are allowed to talk to each other. And then they just let it run. And from that simple foundation, you can start to simulate incredibly complex brain functions. It's a way to see how something as abstract as a thought could literally emerge from a few simple rules. Okay, I know, this all sounds pretty theoretical. So what's the actual real-world payoff? Well, it's huge. These tools are helping scientists finally move beyond just watching what the brain does and start to truly understand why it does it. They're helping us hunt down cause and effect in that beautiful chaos. And here is a perfect hands-on example. It's a method called MSAW. Now, the full name is a total mouthful, Multi-Perturbation Shapley Value analysis, but what it does is amazing. It borrows ideas from game theory to calculate the exact causal role of any single piece of a network. Basically, it figures out exactly how much credit each neuron should get for any given outcome. And this little chart really shows you why MSA is such a game changer. We're shifting away from methods based on hunches that only give you correlations to a super rigorous axiomatic system that gives you actual causal insight. The goal isn't just to see the activity anymore, it's to precisely measure how important every single piece of that puzzle really is. And this is being used in labs right now to make sense of real experiments. when scientists temporarily shut down a part of the brain or use a laser to silence a single neuron, MSA helps them figure out exactly what that one neuron was responsible for. It can help answer questions like, was this specific cell absolutely critical for you to form that memory? So where does this all go from here? Look, this approach has incredible promise, but it's really important to keep in mind that it's still a pretty new field, and it comes with its own set of challenges. Right, and not everyone is totally sold on it yet. Some researchers are raising a flag, cautioning against applying these engineering ideas too literally. The brain, after all, is not a neatly designed machine. It's a product of messy evolution, and all those biological details matter. A lot. So, what's the big picture here? What should you take away? The true power of this whole approach is that it gives us a brand new language. By using the rigor of mathematics, we can finally move beyond just describing what the brain does and start building and testing ideas about the fundamental rules that make the whole thing work in the first place. And that kind of leaves us with one last really big question to chew on. If the incredible, staggering complexity of our own brains, the very thing that creates consciousness, creativity, and love, can eventually be understood through a universal language of rules and control, what does that imply about the nature of thought itself? Something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.